As I said, welcome to Microsoft Sway training from Turn It On. My name is Martin and I'll be working with you during this session. I'm a global training partner for Microsoft and work at Turn It On. What we'll do is we'll have a look at what Sway is and how it works and where you might be able to use it in your school or college. Because we're a global training partner with Microsoft as well, I'm able to offer you a code that you'll be able to redeem on Microsoft's Learn platform. That's a website they have. It's really useful for after this session, you'll be able to get all of the resources that I'm using today around Sway exactly in there. So all you need to do is search in a web browser for Microsoft Learn. And then once you find Microsoft Learn later on in this session, I'll tell you exactly where to go to log in, and you'll be able to then redeem that code, and that will make you what's called a Microsoft Innovative Educator. And that's a place where you can go in the future if you ever need some training or you need to find some information out about a particular area of Office 365 and the Microsoft apps such as Sway. You can pop over to there and pick up those resources. Moving through to today then, we are going to have a look at the Sway and we're going to consider how it suits different audiences and what it actually does for those audiences. We'll look at how you build a Sway and then also how you can format it and change it. And then the beauty of using a Sway over other sorts of presentations is that you can collaborate more easily, but also you can share them quite readily with others. As I've said, happy for you to ask questions throughout the whole training, and we'll pick those questions up and deal with them as we go through. Also, if you've been using Sway previously, please do feel free to pop those comments into the chat. It's always nice to hear what people are doing with Sway in school, and we can pick those up as well. So Sway, really think of it as an alternative to other presentation platforms. Very often people have death by PowerPoint, and it's quite linear in the way it works. You move from one slide to the other. And Sway offers an alternative to that. It's quite interesting, not just for classroom practitioners, but across the whole organization. And regardless of where you're a primary school, secondary school, college, university, Sway's got a place, and we'll consider some uses of that as we go through the training later. When you're creating a Sway, it builds up a bit like Lego bricks, and I'll show you that next. But some words to introduce you to is the layout or the flow. That's how you move through the content of the Sway. And the way that you add to that layout or that flow is to add cards. And I think of it a little bit like stacking Lego bricks up in blocks. The only idea to get your head around is that it goes down the screen rather than up the screen if you were building with Lego bricks. And then you can share that completed Sway and you can use it for all sorts of purposes. So I'm going to jump out of the training that we're going to do now on the presentation, and I'm going to swap over and I'm going to show you a web browser. So to get to Sway, you'll need to log into a modern web browser. Today I am going to use Microsoft Edge, but you could use Google Chrome, you could use Firefox. The only browser that won't work with Sway is Microsoft's old browser that was discontinued this week, which is Internet Explorer. That's no longer supported and it won't work with Sway or most of Office 365. So something to avoid is Internet Explorer. If you haven't got one of those browsers, you can always ask your IT support to install one. Then open up the browser, and in the address bar at the top, the URL that you need to type in is www.office.com, and it will take you to the Office website, and you log in with the email address and the password that you've got from your educational institution. That's the same email and password you normally use to log into Outlook. And then once you're in there, it's all fine to get to all the apps that you need in Office 365. Depending on how your educational institution has organized your Office 365, you're either going to land here, which is what's called the Office 365 landing page, or you might go straight into your Outlook. And if you arrive in your Outlook, it will look something like this. It's varies across different institutions, so don't be thrown whichever one you go to. Wherever you end up, whether it's the home page or whether it's Outlook, in the top left hand corner you've got the app launcher, and as it says, it gives you all the apps that are in Office 365 to get to, and you will find Sway in the app launcher. If you don't find it there, you can always go down to all apps towards the bottom left-hand corner, and then you'll see the apps that are available in Office 365 in alphabetical order. And if I scroll down, that's where I can find Sway. If you want to pin it onto the app launcher at the front, right click over the three dots. Mine is pinned, so it says unpinned, but if you haven't already done it yet, that would say pin to launcher, and then that keeps it on the front page for all your frequently used apps that you might use online. Sway is now online only. There used to be an installed version, but that was retired. So the idea is that you use it as a tab in a web browser. Once you click on it, you will open up an initial view, and there's two views of Sway, which is slightly confusing when you're first getting used to it. The first view is almost like a recently used jump list of sways that you've been editing. It gives you some templates that you could pick up and use, or you can start from a completely new document or a blank document. And scrolling down, there will be all of the recently edited sways which you've been in to use. You can also pin sways in here if you've got something that's really important. Maybe you sway for a weekly newsletter, and it's something that you come to as a template every 7 days. Therefore, you're probably going to pin that in because you're going to need it quite regularly. But you'll get a feel for it as you go through, which ones you can let drift down the list and which ones you can pin in. And always on this page, there'll be a few featured sways at the bottom, and they're often around topical ideas or the month of the year and so forth, so you can pick them up and use them. If you want to see more sways, you click on all sways down the bottom. That will open up another tab, and this is where you'll spend most of your time, not the initial landing page. And then here you can see my sways, the sways that you've been creating and editing. You can also see sways that you've viewed, so that it might be that colleagues have sent you sways and you've looked at sways from other organizations, other schools or colleges. You can also in here get analytics. So there's a sway that I previously had about the universe that we've got rid of, but it tells me that it had 80 views in total. On average, people spent 3 minutes looking at them. So you get a little bit of data about how much you have your sways used. And if you go to deleted, they will sit in here once you've deleted your sways, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. And then you can either hook them back out and you can restore them by ticking in the top corner, or you can empty manually. You could restore all of them if you've got multiple sways in there, or you can delete or just leave them there. And unless somebody changes the rules, they will auto delete after 30 days and tidy themselves up anyway. Just as with the other page, there's lots of different templates to use here. So sometimes you see one, you think that's perfect, it's exactly what I'm looking for. And the more you use Sway, initially when I started, I tried to create everything from scratch and build it bit by bit. And you will need to accept with Sway that it's no point trying to control absolutely everything. And sometimes it's better in Sway if a few of those decisions are made for you, and then you can temper the content rather than worrying about the overall structure. If you're using PowerPoint, you tend to worry about absolutely everything you're doing with an individual slide in a deck. But on Sway, often those decisions are best made by the Sway itself, because it looks at the content you're using and it'll pick the most appropriate colors, or look at the data you've got and pick the most appropriate flow. And that's all available from there. I said I'd teach you how to delete. If you need to delete, click the three dots in the top corner on the right hand side of any of the sways. The view changes. Here you can get a share link to share with others if you want to get your sway outside of your sway library, because this library is private to you. Nobody else can see it unless you invite them to your sway. You can duplicate or make a copy of a sway. So a good example of that might be a frequently used sway, such as a newsletter. And that will allow you to get an absolute copy of what's there. Or the recycle bin allows you to delete that sway, and over it goes to the deleted section over there. If you just want to view the sway, you press the play button. And then when you press the play button, it runs from there. So if we want to start a new one, the best thing to do is go up here to create new. If you've got a Word document or you've got a PowerPoint presentation, it is possible to bring them in. So you can go start from document, you locate that document on your computer or on your server shared area. And then what will happen from that point on is that you will get it into your sway. It will auto convert, so you don't have to worry about everything, and it will lay out in the best way it deems sensible. But more than likely, most of the time you're going to be creating from new. So I'll show you creating from new today rather than the import function. When you go to creating from new, you come to this look, and this is the base starting point for all of your sways. The first thing you need to do is decide on a title. So I'm going to say this title is Year 6 Leavers, as it's that time of year in primary schools. It might be Year 11 Leavers if you're in a secondary school, or whichever group is appropriate. The cards are the rectangles, and each card's got a certain amount of changes that you can make to it. So you could emphasize certain text. Emphasize is the same as bold. Sense is the same as italics, and you can also include links, and then the links will ask you to display some text. So it might be you've got a leavers gallery on your website and you want to have a web link to that, well, you can have that in there. It could be either part of that text as a hyperlink in the title, or it could be separate. This card is collapsed at the moment, and the little arrow on the side will expand that and break it down into the different elements, such as the text, any background, or any a logo. If you want to bring it back together, you can do that there. And the other thing you can do in a sway to make it more media friendly is you can have a background for it. So if I click background, the beauty, whether using this with pupils, students, or staff, everything is in one place. You don't have to go opening up another tab, saving it, downloading it to your computer, bringing it back in. You can do that, but you often get used to it in here. So it might be, let's have primary school as a example, because this is a primary school leaver, primary school in there. And then we hit the search button. And what it will do in the search, it will look, for example, pictures of primary schools and avoid anything that's obviously got faces of pupils in, because that might not be GDPR compliant. But they have searched a Creative Commons version of a search rather than copyright protected images. So you should be okay with the images that are returned in the search if you don't want to upload one. So if I want to use a picture of a primary school, I think I might use that one. I can drag it over, I can drop it, and then in it goes. And you can see at the top, Creative Commons is ticked. If you want to go outside of Creative Commons, you just untick that, and then it will allow you to search absolutely any image on the internet and bring that in. The same is true with videos. So you can bring video clips in, and we'll do that in a little bit, but it all comes to the same place. If you want to have all in one search, then click the all rather than filtering it on the side. Once you finish with it, press the cross, and there you've got your first title card sorted. Now, I spoke earlier about building this like blocks of Lego as you're putting it together, and that is exactly the way that I'm going to work my way down the screen. So at the bottom of every card, you've got a plus symbol to insert new content. If I press the plus, it will give me some suggested next steps. You don't by any means have to adopt or go with those on that list there. You can then choose your own from the bar at the top. So you can have text, and you'll have heading text, and if you've got heading text 1, it will then give you a heading text 2, and we'll do that next. You can have a main body of text, all sorts of media in there. You've already seen about inserting a static image, but you can bring in videos, audio clips, you can embed URLs, or you can upload. And then you can group things together. So you can have grids of photos, you can have a comparison, you can have a stack, or you can have a slideshow. So I'll get you started by showing you some of those as they stack up. And then what we'll do is have a look at some examples that I've already made and how they work. Remember, if you've got any questions, please do pop them over in the chat. I will come and have a look. No problem, Lisa. It's only recently started. It is being recorded as well, so you can always go back and pick it up. Is everybody else able to hear me? If anyone's able to put a yes in the chat. Okay. That's fine. Perfect. Thank you, Louise, for confirming. The next step would be, let's say, to put a heading in. So it might be that we're going to start with looking back, and we're going to look back at their time at the school. So that's the main title. Don't think I'm going to put a background on that now, but I'm going to add in. And now I've got the main heading, I can add in a subheading. So this might be looking back, and we're going to say we're going to look at year 1, for instance, or it could be reception, whatever it is. Now we've got those as 2 titles. We're going to scroll down again, And what we think we'll do here is we'll have some groups of photos. So it might be a comparison, and I've already changed my mind. I'm going to have year 1 to year 6. And then in here, we can add 2 images and we can compare how that pupil has changed. So it might be that I want to upload, and that's where you get your upload button, or I can choose to use the image search. Just for speed here, I'm going to use the image search. But once you click on that upload button, it would look in whichever folder is relevant on your computer, whether it's downloads, your pictures, and you can just bring the images in. Or you can use the search function. So I'm going to say primary school pupils here. And I'm going to still leave the Creative Commons attached. Let's just put primary pupils and see what we get. Okay, so it might be that we've got trying to find something that's vaguely similar here of a photo. So it could be that this was my pupils in year 1. And I'm going to drag them over and I'm going to put them there. And I am going to then have them in a different year. Let's go down and find, well, let's say they've really grown up. We'll have them there. Doesn't vaguely match, but we'll put it in. What you can do then is come out of that, and you might be thinking by now, well, I've started building, but I've got absolutely no clue whatsoever how this really looks. Well, that's where the play button comes in. The play button is the thing that you use to view your sway as if you were looking at this as a recipient of it in the end, rather than somebody building it at the same time. So you press the play button. I've got year 6 leavers. This picture of my school, and they've left. Looking back, and then here you end up with a comparison of the 2, and you can move backwards and forwards. Now that doesn't particularly work for me because they aren't similar enough, and I would go back and change them again. But it gives me scope then to add in underneath. So I might be, instead of looking back, when I want to go and edit, I press the edit button. Underneath here, you've got the sections with the photos, and what you need to do then is, I'm going to take that and I'm going to move that up into there. You can move sections around at any point, but you can also add in another section. So if I clicked on here on the very outermost part of the card, and I'll click out of that again, the outermost part of the card allows me to add another discrete separate section. If I clicked inside, it's going to bolt on to the image comparison I've already got. And that seems a bit strange at first, but you will gradually get used to clicking on those different layers. You can think of it 3-dimensionally. If I click out, the very light grey is the card at the back, the medium grey is sat on top, and then the dark grey is sat on top of that like layers. So as well as building them up like bricks going down the screen, there's layers of content within each area. So if I wanted to put in a new section, it might be that I'm going to have another text. I'll put in another heading too. So this might be Leavers Assembly. And then in Leavers Assembly, I may go, I want to add a link, and I could put in the link of the website. So in here is school website, and I might go there to the school website. And the school website itself, I'm just going to use Turn It On as an example. And we'll take the address for Turn It On, we'll go back and we'll pop that in there, and then that will be available in there. And I probably want to move that down because I don't want that in the same line. So I'm going to copy that out, and I'm going to pop that down there underneath. So school website, and you can play around with these as much as you want. You can also pick them up and move them inside. So if I decided I wanted this content further up and I wanted to drop it in and there, I could put the Leavers Assembly in the middle of the looking back rather than having it coming afterwards. And it's up to you as to how you want to make this flow, and you can move it back again just as easily so it sits underneath. And it's one of those things where the content is not static, it's not fixed. If you wanted to get rid of something and you actually decided you didn't want the school website, all you do is you press the recycle bin there and it will get rid of it and it will take it out. So you've got quite a bit of scope with the boxes themselves. Before I show you about redesigning and editing a sway, has anybody got any questions about building it up and creating the actual blocks of content in the first place? Nothing at the moment. If there is, do feel free to keep popping anything in there. Louise, I can see you just typing something, so I'll give you a chance to type that in. Happy at the moment. Perfect. Thank you for confirming. What we'll do then is we'll look at how we remix or edit one of these now. So if you noticed, I'm in storyline at the moment. That's where we build up our cards and we add them together. If you want to do something and you want to change the way this looks, you click on the design tab at the top. And when you go over to design, that gives you the option over here to have styles, and you press styles and they come out from the side. Not everybody finds that initially, so go to design and press styles. You can be really relaxed about this and press the remix button if you want, and what it will do is, it based on your content, it will say looking back, so it's applied that black and white, and there's my picture to scroll backwards and forwards for my comparison to see how they've changed from year 1 to year 6. So I've got those dragging elements there. But if it doesn't suit me, what I can do is I can undo that, and it will put it exactly back to how I had it. Instead of it being side scroll, it's now top to bottom scroll. So if you want to do these things manually, you can. Vertical scroll is where I am at the moment, but I could have horizontal, and that's what it applied to the previous change, or I can have it as individual slides like a PowerPoint, but I'm trying to get away from a PowerPoint, so I don't really want to go back to that. So I think I'll stick with a vertical slide, a bit like scrolling down a website. You could, if you wish to, customize certain elements inside of it. So you might decide, look, we want yellow banners there because we're a school with a yellow uniform, or a red uniform, or green, or whatever else. And you can change that, and you can have custom colors there if you want to have a custom color, or you can choose from the palettes. You've also got the ability to change the font as well. So if I didn't like that one, I might say, look, I'll have that font. No, don't like that one either. I'll go over to Biome and see what that looks like. Yeah, that'll do me for now. And you've also got the ability to change things like size of text and the amount of emphasis on them. And that's all there and available to you. And you can go back, and then it locks in once you've gone back. The other thing you can do is you can apply templates. And as I've said, allowing Sway to make decisions for you is often the best way, rather than having to go in and fiddle with these. I have on occasions gone in and spent ages messing around with things, and then suddenly by accident applied one of these themes and gone, oh, you know, it's better than I've managed within 40 minutes of changing everything and anything I can get my hands on. As before, it's not set in tablets of stone, so if you try one of these and you don't like it, you can go back. So I might click on this one here. All of a sudden, it's changed it to that. It's got a different background as I go through, but I don't particularly like the way that it lays the rest of the content out, so I'm going to swing back over. You might want something else that's more blocky, so you might say, look, I want to have the whole thing in orange and get rid of that at the top and just have my text overlaid on my photos. And you just explore. You can scroll through sideways, and there's lots of different versions of it in here, so you won't get bored with content. But remember, if you want to go back, it's the undo button, and all of those options are in there. I have over time stopped using the customize button and started to use the options that are already determined for me down here, and just accept that, particularly with templates I'm reusing frequently, I don't want people to come to it and think, oh no, it's another newsletter from Martin, or it's another one of those documents from Martin. I want it to feel a bit fresh and a bit different, and the quickest way to save time that I've found to do that is just to go with it and apply something that's appropriate, that gives you a feel and a look that you're happy with from a professional standpoint. But it doesn't mean that you've got to spend hours making it look different. It just happens in the background, and you just let it go through and you go with it. And the next week you come with it, you choose something else again. So you can easily go back. Once you've got it how you want it, you can get rid of the styles to have a better look on the design tab. You can always go to the play button to preview it again. So this is now how it flows. And there's my year 1 to 6. I'd need to go back and pop something in there for a Leavers Assembly. It might be a video we've recorded of Leavers Assembly celebrating the day when we had the hour, we had the parents in. And what we intend to do is, maybe instead of a Leavers book, and I know some schools have done this, they've produced a digital Leavers book. And then everything that you'd normally get in that paper Leavers book is here in the digital version. And then the parents are able to access that because the school leaves it up and leaves it available. So as far as remixing and changing your content, those are the ways to do it. If you want to get back to your storyline, all you do is click back to storyline, and then you'll be exactly back to where you were previously. To give you an example of some other content, if you want to get back to where you were before, you just press the sway button. It will move you back to the library that we had here at the beginning, where it's got my recently edited. So it may be that we do have a school newsletter, and in that school newsletter, there's quite a bit in here that's already been made, but I'm going to go to play, and I'm going down. I've got all my key dates because it was Christmas when we were doing this. I've got some building work that's gone in the schools. Spring term, we're going to have our new curriculum. Or if I go back to edit and back to the launch, it might be that we've got a science club and I want to get that science club advertised, and we want to get numbers of pupils coming to that after school. So we've got some pictures of what we've been doing in science club. Here's an example of where we can go through photos. Now there's only 2 there, so it's not massively interesting, but you can have a whole stack, and a bit like flicking through paper photos, they're available online. I've also got videos to click here where I can see what the pupils have been doing online. There's a new science building to work in, but we are going to be in this term making slime, doing edible rocks and explosions. And here are some videos of what we did previously when we had the pupils' hands and we set them on fire in a safe way. And here are some pictures of the teachers and the pupils with their flaming hands. And it's meant to be a real hook and a showcase of the club. So there's lots of different ways that you can use a sway. And it doesn't have to be that you use it in all of those ways. School prospectuses, I've seen a number of our schools using sway instead of having a paper document, and they've sent something a bit more interactive. But also equally, you could show teachers and support staff, TAs, this is a platform, and I've used it as a teacher myself in class. I've showed it to pupils, anyone from even year 2 upwards, depending on the ability of the class I'm teaching. You show them sway, and because a lot of the remixing the content is taken care of, you can get them to really focus time on the learning and getting the content in there. And it might be that you've done the research entirely separately on paper, and providing they're old enough to type, and there are dictation tools that you can use to get content in other Office 365 programs, but you could get the content in and then you can get it into the sway. But then it's all about making the presentation and maybe talking about it in class rather than spending ages fixing all of the different elements of a traditional PowerPoint slide. Any questions on remixing content before we go over and look at sharing sways and getting them to other people in your school? Just go over and check the chats. So I can see there's some discussion been going on. So good. I can see, Sarah, you've used it to build lessons. That's really encouraging. I've always had a great deal of enthusiasm, even from teachers that are a bit skeptical or hesitant when it comes to technology. If you show them sway, it tends to be that they see that it's partially accessible, and they'll go away and have a play with it and then start to use it themselves. Joanna, I can see you got a question there. Is sway intended for presentations with speaker and audience? Yeah, I've used it for that purpose as well. So I have very much brought up a sway, and I've used it to talk through on an open evening. So I have used it to get away from death by PowerPoint. It just makes it a bit different, and people see you scrolling through. And also, it's a link I can leave them with afterwards. So I tend to write a presentation for an audience. It's very open and not just for me personally, because it saves me creating a companion document so they can flick through it by themselves as well as me flicking through it when I'm presenting. But because I might have a video in there, or you could have a PowerPoint presentation in there, so you can embed in sways other documents. So if you've saved that document in your OneDrive, you can get what's called a shareable link, and you can embed that directly into the sway. So you could view a Excel spreadsheet, or you can scroll through a Word document, or you can look at the PowerPoint presentation from within the sway. You don't have to have them in separate ideas. Scrolling down, just reading through the comments. The modern interactive feel is something that people often like. It does feel more like a website and less static. I do have a small majority of people that really don't get on with sway, and that tends to be people that prefer paper-based traditional methods, and they say that when they scroll through it makes them feel lost. So you can download a sway and get it out as a PDF, and I'll show you how to do that in a tick. But the idea is really it's viewed online because the whole interactive nature of it and the fact it's live is what sells it to a lot of people. Yep, you can share it with anyone, and I will absolutely show you how to do that next. You could use it instead of PowerPoint, or you can use it with PowerPoint. I tend to pick it, and I give it to pupils and staff as picking the correct tool for the job. I wouldn't say it's ever going to replace PowerPoint, but sometimes it's a better option than a PowerPoint. It's really up to you to think when it's most appropriate to use it. The stats, the stats I find quite helpful, particularly when I've created something for Turn It On and I'm sharing it externally. It really gives me an idea for how popular it is and how much it's been utilized. And inside school as well, if you've spent all this time and it's got really important information in it, but yet only 1 or 2 staff have accessed it, then you've got to reevaluate. Is it because you're not hitting the audience? Did they know it's not there? And if they haven't had that information, you've got to get it to them some other way. So no problem at all. Let's go back to the year 6 levers then. So once you've got your sway and it's how you'd like it, you've got some other options up here in the top right hand corner we haven't yet explored. So there's a share button and the 3 dots. With anything in the Microsoft Office 365 world, the 3 dots always hide further options. If you click them, it's a shortcut to get back to your My Sways, and you can use that in addition to the sway button over there. It's also another place to duplicate your sway from inside of it rather than outside on the sway menu. You can save it as a template. So with the school weekly newsletter analogy, that's exactly what a lot of schools do. They create it as a template and then they just edit that template every week. You can print it, but again, you lose the essence of what a sway is. I told you I'd show you where export is. Export is there, so you can export it as a Word document or a PDF, but it will be very static and you won't have the interactive nature of what a sway is when you're viewing it online. The other thing that you're going to want to do is check for how accessible it is for different types of learners or different types of needs. So what it will do is it will make suggestions. If you've used a text here, it might be that names the school that's in the original picture, so you need to go back in and change the name of that. It might be that it says, look, this particular font isn't easily read by certain groups of people, therefore choose a different font. And all of that is all in there in accessibility checker. And you've got accessibility view as well, where you can have it without the interactivity, so it's more static when you scroll through, so you haven't got the busyness, and it makes it easier, particularly for those maybe with visual impairments or learning needs when you've got pupils in the classroom doing that. And you go back to edit and it will bring you back through to where you were previously. The settings for your sway is another key area to dip into. So you can have other languages in here. If you've got EAL pupils, or you know you're giving this to parents, and you know you've got a huge swathe of other languages out there, so you can then embed different other languages in there. So it might be like you can have Italian, and you can show text detection buttons, or you can use scrolls. That one at the moment has been a little bit patchy, in all honesty, and I've raised it with Microsoft that the language options don't always show up, but they have been working pretty well before this point. So do stick with it and come back in check. One of the things you're probably going to want to untick is that viewers viewing it can co-author or duplicate your sway. Very often, if you're sharing outside of the school, or sometimes even in the school, you don't want people tinkering with it and messing up the original one. Also, it can cause inaccuracies in the information you're sharing, so you'd untick that. You can actually control whether people can print it out or export it, or whether you're going to force them to view it online only, so you have got that level of control. And you're probably also going to want to untick that viewers can change it. But informational footer gives you information about the sway, so you're more than likely going to want to leave that as on. And then down the bottom, you can have it autoplay if you want to switch it on, that when somebody opens up a sway, it starts to move through. This is particularly good maybe if you've got a sway on an open evening and you've got it on display, or you want to have it on a screen in reception, you want the sway to go round and round. There are various times when autoplay is appropriate, but I tend to use that quite sparingly in the settings that you've got there in sway. Once you've got everything locked in, it's press the cross. You don't lose what you've chosen. It is locked in there and it's available to you. So the next thing is to get it out there and get it to the other people. So you press the share button. So what you've got in here are 3 options. The default one is usually people in your school, college, or organization that have that link. And the link is down here at the moment is a view link. And it's really important to get these right. You copy the link and then you can insert it in another document. So you might be typing this if you don't use this for newsletters, but you want to get someone to the sway, or maybe it's a sway that pupils have created and you want to show it to parents. You've got that and you can embed it in. It could be it goes into a click here type button. It could be that you want to display the whole thing in an email. It's up to you. If you want to go outside of your school or organization, need to make sure that you choose anyone with this link and it's on view. And then there are other options available. You can embed it in social media, so it does transfer out nice and easily to Facebook or Twitter and LinkedIn. If you want to embed it in your website and your website supports embed codes, you can click an embed code and you can choose the height of it by pixels. So that's 760 pixels by 500 pixels. You can change that and fiddle around with those once you get it into the HTML and your website. So it is possible to host your sway on certain website providers inside the website. It does vary between website providers, so check with them whether that's possible. If you aren't sharing via website, what you can do is also get a visual link. If you get a visual link, you can use those in other content. So I tend to use those quite a lot in teams with staff teams or pupil teams. And the visual link is the thing that you click on inside the team. So you might say to pupils, please click here to see our sway for our lesson today. And then what I want them to do in the lesson is actually in a sway, so I don't have to stand there repeating myself and I say, well, if you're lost and you're not sure where you are in your learning, go and check the sway. All the resources you need are there. Go and pick them up. And it saves me time and frees me up to move around the classroom. There's lots of instances when visual links are good. You might use those in other documents, particularly if you're sharing with parents outside of school. Go back again. The other thing that you can do is co-author and collaborate in school. So if you want to say specific people, you can name them by their email address and type their email address in there, or it could be anyone in your organization, but you're going to give them edit rights. So instead of being viewable, it's now editable and they can come in and they can co-author. You copy that, you send it over to them, maybe you pop them a message in chat in Teams, or you email it to them if you're not using Teams, and then they can duck into the same sway and they can edit with you. The final few options down here at the bottom, if you know that you've got images of pupils and you want to remain in control and you've had to say, look, anyone outside of this school and it's view only, what you can do is require a password, and you could give that to the parents separately. So even if the parent happened to post a link on Facebook or something on social media, if that was then clicked on, the other person outside of the school has less of a chance of getting in if they didn't have the corresponding password as well to view the sway. So it gives a bit more safeguarding and protection, and certainly under GDPR as well, to the data or the images that you might have in there, because it's one way to limit the audience. If you think that's going to be a hindrance, then don't use it, but the choice is there for you if you wish. And also you can control whether people can reshare. So you can see the share button here at the moment. If you don't want people to reshare and you just want them to be able to view and not pass it on, then untick that button and then the share button's not visible for them. So you've got quite a bit of granular control there about how you get this out to others, but it's all there for you to use and play with, and certainly easier to get out than some of those other presentation platforms or using PowerPoint itself. Once you've got everything there, it's all ready to go, and then you go back in and double check, yep, that's exactly how I want it if it was going to be left at that point. And away I go and back over to my sway menu, and I can go back in and edit my other sways. If I'm finished with it and I don't want to edit it anymore, I can just press the cross and that will close down the tab, and it will be then available to me. If I want to go back in again, I can go to the app launcher, go into sway and come back across, and the tab would open up, pick up exactly where I left off. It's always saved into SharePoint in Office 365, so you can't lose it. The only time you would lose it if you manually click those dots and press delete, and then you wait for the 30 days to elapse and you don't restore it or put it back. There's no way to get it back once it's gone after the 30-day limits. So if you think you made a mistake or you want to tell people who are starting to use this, that is an important thing. On occasion, someone's not realized they've deleted it, but you have to try quite hard by pressing delete, and then it will ask you if you really want to delete and so forth. And that really is our introduction day to the sway and getting to use things. Are there any other questions or comments? I'm just going to come back over to the chat. You can see there's a occasioning. So if the sway isn't downloaded but stays online, is there a storage limit? No, there isn't. There's no storage limit at all. So you can have as many of these sways as you want. And it also doesn't detract from the storage limit you've got associated with your individual account in Office 365. You also, and people find this a bit weird, but if you went to your OneDrive, for instance, just like Forms, you can't actually see the sway file. It's hidden. The only way you can see the sway file is to come into sway itself. And then any associated sway files that you've got in your OneDrive or in a SharePoint will be visible in here, but you can't go and pick them up as a file and attach them to something else. Can you embed a sway into a PowerPoint? Very good question. It's not something I've tried recently, but when I did try about a year or so ago, it wasn't possible to embed a sway into a PowerPoint. I could put the hyperlink in the PowerPoint and you could click on the hyperlink, but you couldn't get the sway to preview and show up as an item you could scroll through. So you can put the link in, but you can't get the whole sway to show up at the moment, as far as I know. Louise, you've obviously used this a bit more than I have on that. So yes, but you need to add it on. Okay. So Padlet, yeah, definitely Padlet you can. Absolutely you can. I just haven't found a way to do something similar with sway other than giving a link to the sway itself. Any other questions? These are really good questions. So keep asking if you want to get anything cleared up before you go. Yeah, if you do get anything with that, Louise, please do let me know. You can. This chat will stay live, so you can always drop something in there afterwards if you want. Yeah, you can embed Teams. You can embed into Teams. So that same share link that I showed you for view and edit, if you just copy that and you can paste it into either a Teams post, whether it's a staff team or a class team, if you're using it with pupils, or if you want to do it in a private chat, yeah, absolutely, you can do that in there, and then it will bring them in, providing you've given the correct share permissions in the settings that I've just showed you there. Any other questions as well? See, Sarah's busy typing. I'll let her do that. Very easy to embed, and also, okay, so that's good. So that seems to indicate that that's possible. While people are still asking questions, I'm just going to swap views over a moment and duck back over to the presentation that I had originally. We promised you, for those people that were joining, the ability to get a redeem code today. So one of the things that we can offer you as a Microsoft training partner is the ability to get a code for what's called the Microsoft Learn platform. Microsoft Learn is where you can go and get CPD and resources, and it's also where you can find all the associated materials that we've used in today's training session. So if you go to an internet browser and search for Microsoft Learn, once it comes up, you will need to sign in, but once you've signed in, you can go through, I'm just going to duck through these, and you can pick up the code that I've got at the bottom of the screen there, and I'm just going to go on to the next slide. Don't worry, the code is still there in the top right-hand corner. The code can be then redeemed by, once you've signed in the top right-hand corner, you'll see an outline unless you've chosen a picture for your avatar. Click on your account and you can see my account in the picture on the bottom left-hand corner of this slide. In the middle of the window, underneath where it says achievement, I've circled it in yellow there, but there's a hyperlink that says redeem your code now. When you press that, you'll get a little pop-up window, and that's shown on the bottom right-hand corner of the slide I've got displayed. And then all you do is you type the code that I've got in the top right-hand corner of this screen into that box, and you'll be able to redeem that code, and you'll get credited with having completed the training today. And it will also give you enough points to make you a Microsoft Innovative Expert. That means that you'll get a little badge to go with it, but also it's a great place to go for your own professional development, but also the professional development of colleagues. If you are watching this back afterwards, then it's no problem at all. This code will remain live, or if you want to share it with colleagues as well, you can do so. I've just popped it in the chat there if you want to copy and paste it. And that will give you the same qualification post-training too. So unless you've got any other questions or anything about the qualifications you can get in Learn, I will let you get on with your afternoon. I want to say a massive thank you for coming along this afternoon. I know how busy it is, particularly this time of year in schools. So please go away, have a little play around. I would at first create a sway that you intend to trash, and just try doing all those crazy things with it, adding in links, videos, contents. Don't worry about it. You can't break it. And then go after that and create a sway for the purpose you really want it for. And then always keep that other demo little trial sway as the one that you're going to go back and use as your experiment. And if it goes wrong in there, hey, what the heck, it doesn't matter. So a huge thank you for coming along this afternoon. I've really enjoyed your company, and thank you so much for being so interactive about this as well. It really does make a huge difference when I've got people that are talking and sharing ideas the way you have. If you are interested in the sessions that Turn It On has to offer, we do have more of these coming up. We've got a few left before we break up for the summer, and you can find those at www.turniton.co.uk/events. You can sign up there on the Eventbrite links. We'll also have a few summer schools towards the end of the summer, but it's your holidays, so please don't come along unless you really want to have some CPD. We'll be doing some team bits there. Otherwise, I'll be picking up with you again in September. They're all free. You're all welcome at any point, and if you want to come back for anything else, please do so. Thank you for sharing the link for Microsoft Learn there. That's really fabulous and so helpful. And enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I'll remain here in case there's anything you want to ask individually. Otherwise, go grab some sunshine once you leave school. Thank you.